Alex Answer here. It is March 10th in the year 2019, and we are about to approach this very delicate subject. On the heels of our program last night, solar flares, EMPs to wipe out civilization and reset human relationships. There's a couple additional points that I would like to make, but before we do that, you're looking at the murals from Denver, Colorado. Okay, and these murals were installed in the 1990s. They have been the subject of a variety of conspiracy theories. And when I say that, I don't intend to be demeaning, but I also acknowledge that some people get carried away and they may forget that the person that drew these, I don't have his name right now, but there is information that you can find online about the Native American artist. And so some people saw this as predictive programming, a message from the elite. Others look at this as the artwork from a Native American artist that is setting a warning. But the question comes, why would the Denver airport, of all places, be putting this out there? Because a lot of us understand this, and a lot of us feel, whether you identify with being concerned about wars, whether you are concerned with a deep solar minimum, other people might just be environmental degradation. Hey, that's not something to overlook. When we look a little closer at what's taking place, I mean, even Portland, Oregon had a reputation for being a very green city for a long, long time. And that has been a facade. There was some news that came out about one of their plants up in the North Portland area, some sort of emissions. There's even talk about maybe some cities getting a pass from the EPA because of their politics. I think that's something to consider. And so the greater reality is we've been living a facade. And energetically, our civilization is contaminated with lower spirits, ultimately. And so, yes, we're looking at the horse. What does the blue horse symbolize? And so they have a mixture of different things. I'm going to tell you why we're going to get into this. Before we start reading, let me go ahead and give you a preview. We are going to go through the BBC report after a refresher on the images that some people may never have seen. Some of you have seen them perhaps many, many times. We are going to be talking about the connection between that, the imagery, also the concerns that we have within ourselves. They may or may not talk about solar cycles, but this data that they are providing, without a doubt, is something that I can look at later. And so this is a fairly sizable report. I haven't gone through it yet. I'm going to go over the bullet points with you. I want to pause at this time and, again, thank those of you that donated the other day. I'm going to be getting my car fixed. Overall, we're looking at a $500 repair after the tire rods, after other things. We're not counting the tires that maybe I've gone through. So, yeah, I live off the grid on a very limited income. My cat is asking to be let out. That will happen in just a moment. We will take care of that. I'm going to be showing you a video. They're basically looking at the Denver conspiracy theories, and they've made a mockery of it with talking gargoyles. And so this is like one big joke, right? It's like one big joke to be concerned. Yet we look at this, and we're looking at an image here of a statue, and this reminds me of the statue or the face, a face that seems to be carved into the rock. Even here in my own backyard in this area. And various monuments, also Mesa Verde, also New Mexico, also Moab. I would love to visit Moab. Are we living on top of an ancient civilization? I believe it was Christy from Soul Journey Radio that drove through Moab recently and shot some amazing video. Maybe one day I'll get a chance to see Moab myself, just something I caught on YouTube. But one of the things that I've been tapping into recently, this was last year, is the idea of spirit in the rock. What does it mean? How does it connect us with the ancient world? How does it connect us with our ancestors? I'm also going to be reading another passage from the mythology book that I've borrowed from the library that I have an extension on at the moment. There's a couple other areas that I want to get through in that. But there's something about even images that speak to our soul that can wake us up. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of us. That is the beauty of the internet, of this instantaneous communication, the fact that you can hear my voice, the fact that we're able to do this without having to spend a lot of money to put into the quote-unquote infrastructure that literally today, in today's day and age, a homeless person or a woman living out of her RV, I found one lady with 100,000 subscribers, and she doesn't even get political. She's just driving around sharing her experiences, including the people that threaten her, unfortunately, as a woman who lives in her RV. But the question is, why are people following their inner hunch? Or why are so many people getting that inner hunch that it's time to start getting mobile and flexible? Even myself. I'd like to have a 4x4 that I can live in. Right now, I need to focus on repairs. You're definitely being risky. One is being risky if they don't really know the quality of a car when they're buying it for $1,000. But maybe I can fundraise later for something like that, maybe next year, or bring in some other income some other way. But I feel a very strong desire to be traveling and mobile and camping, to not be sedentary, so that my senses are as sharp as they can be. In the meantime, right, there's reasons why maybe you should trust your body's senses when it's time to maybe attempt to do some extra exercise. Maybe time in some cases. This is the opposite of me yesterday. I was on caffeine like crazy all day long. And today it's like, Alex, maybe step back from that and attempt to go into a calmer mode for this Sunday. And so that's what we are going to do. I am lining up the next video for you. Okay, so this is from the mainstream media, and they are bringing out in plain sight talking gargoyles, kind of making a joke out of the whole thing. And, you know, even though there's a little bit of humor in there, when you realize those that commissioned the construction of the Denver airport, that it's shaped like a swastika. It also says with a Masonic sign, March 19th, 1994. Looks like we're coming up on that. There is something about this period in spring, more so than the actual declaration of spring, but the energies of us going out of winter and into spring. This is a very high energy period. We're also coming out of the new moon. So this is the perfect time to be contemplating on these things. We're also, I have a couple of notes here that I didn't get into in last night's live stream. I want to thank those of you that showed up. I want to thank those of you that liked the video. I want to thank those of you that may have even shared the video on Twitter or Facebook. If you are on Facebook, I'm not using Facebook myself, but I will probably be doing some Facebook live streams coming up in a few months when a friend visits. I'll probably reactivate my Facebook page just simply so I can get the message out to those people that have been, for lack of a better word, addicted to just communicating with people on Facebook, and remind them that I still do exist, and we need to directly address our digital addictions to these platforms that are skewing reality in profound ways. Now, here's that video on the Denver airport.
That's a little too close for comfort, lady.
Oh, damn.
What, you never seen a talking gargoyle before? Welcome to Illuminati headquarters. I mean, Denver International Airport.
This is awesome.
Hello? Do I know you?
Are you hungry?
Oh, I'm starving. You got anything for me? Those flowers look delicious.
Oh my God. Oh, it's because of the conspiracy.
Oh, it's because of the conspiracy. Look at me. I'm a little know-it-all. Will you get back over here? I got a question about this conspiracy. Did you have to buy an extra seat for your hat, sir? Sir, are you stealing a desk? Sir, you have resting, confused face. Do you have a favorite animal or pet?
A caterpillar?
A caterpillar? Wouldn't you rather have a gargoyle?
No!
Yes! You know, you can actually put the phone down and have a conversation with me. But no, I'm a millennial. I've got to post it. I've got to snap face it and Twitter book it. Excuse me, miss, I've got a stain that needs some polishing. Can I borrow your cleaning cart?
Oh, no!
I need your help! Guess what my favorite food is?
What?
No, I want you to guess.
Cumin?
Cumin! Yes, I love cumin.
I said human.
Oh, I thought you said cumin. I'm a real big spice guy. Furry hat guy, I can't believe you are wearing one of my friends.
Hey, this isn't your friend.
It used to be until you put it on your head, man.
How old are you?
Well, 243 years old now. I look good for my age, don't I?
Yeah, you work out?
All the time. You should see my squats.
You're such a sweet talker.
Will you take me back home with you?
Let's go. I have some space in my backpack.
Actually, I think you have too much baggage for me.
Alrighty then. So what you're looking at right now are close-ups of a rock. And I found the image online. It was a registered copyrighted image of a Native American site. And so I zoomed up very closely. And these are some of the images that I see. There are also photos from Bill Gorman. And some of these I altered the color skew. So when it dissolved like that, you could see it from another. This seems to be like a bowl. And bowls are representative in both Celtic as well as East Indian lore. This obviously has some serpent symbolism. I don't think that it's wise to look at everything through the lens of David Icke. This appears to be a serpent humanoid. Now, the reason that I brought this up, a person by the name of, I don't know if he wanted his name mentioned, he had a story that he put out there, and it was picked up by MUFON. And it was about a flying serpent. Now, but this image, by the way, looks Egyptian, and that almost looks like the Eye of Horus. So these are real close-ups. It says dissolve, slightly different color skew on a basic program right here on this Windows without actually altering the picture. That almost looks like a skull there down at the bottom. And there's so many more images. The point is, and see, now we're going to dissolve to this. When I saw that image, it reminded me of what I've already seen with these images. And I've already been curious if an ancient civilization was here in Colorado, not just here. We talked about Utah, New Mexico, but specific areas may have had specific individuals, deities. They may have had specific wars or conflicts with perhaps others on the other side of the mountain. Looking at Bill Gorman's Mammoth Temple slideshow, there's a very different style to the deities. Although we do see things that look like Anubis, as well as Thoth. I mean, literally, like where the Clovis Indians carved it, whether it appeared natural in the rocks, or some sort of thing like a petrified giant theory. And I'm open to other theories, but there's clearly life in these rocks. Not everyone understands that. That's not for everyone to go down that route of investigation. But even when you go to some of these sites, like it's just rock. It's not like something that people actually recognize is something. It's just rock that most people don't even notice the unique shapes that these are even manifesting. And some of these symbols seem really, really familiar. And so, and the serpent humanoid, and it bearing somewhat of a resemblance to something that was drawn. And putting that article about that person's sighting. I mean, he was driving down the road one day, and it was flying alongside his car, looking at him, completely muscular, and not with not with a happy demeanor. And this seems to be, that looks like a fist. Those look like clearly defined knuckles. And so, like, how did this come to be? And, it's a curious question. And so these things may not directly interrelate overtly on a conscious level, but maybe they really do on another. Are we on the road to civilization's collapse? That's the headline from the BBC after this intro. Okay, and now let's look at the main things that they are bringing up. Studying the demise of historic civilizations can tell us how much risk we face today. By Luke Kemp. This is from February 19th, 3 weeks ago. Great civilizations are not murdered. Instead, they take their own lives. So concluded the historian Arnold Toynbee in his 12-volume magnum opus, A Study of History. It was an exploration of the rise and fall of 28 civilizations. He was right in some respects. Civilizations are often responsible for their own decline. However, their self-destruction is usually assisted. I'm going to keep some of my personal commentary minimal to get through a very long report, but already we're thinking about perhaps technology destroying us at our own hand, by our own hand, as well as depleted uranium. You don't hear about that so much, but I remember older anti-war activists, senior citizens, and I say that endearingly, back in the day in Portland, Oregon, that would show up, even some people that are no longer alive. As I was saying in kind of a more power-charged rant yesterday, there were a number of senior citizens that were my biggest viewers back in the day in Portland. I think now it's balanced out to being more my age. And there are people that are older too, because there's something about what I'm tapping into that some of them have a little bit more life experience in some respects, understanding. And that's also what's going to alienate some people from sticking around this channel, people that are addicted to politics, that are unable to see beyond a political cycle, that we're having deeper conversations about reality. So I think that there is a lot of things to say with regards to this, things that you may think about as I read this. The Roman Empire, for example, was the victim of many ills, including overexpansion, climate change, environmental degradation, and poor leadership. By the way, I have a cracked screen that's requiring me to move this around so I can read it. I may be able to upgrade soon in terms of a screen, but I'm working on a car repair mostly. And I mentioned last night, I'm going to try to get through this, but again, there's a number of people online that are picking up on the potential that we're about to see something go down. Whether it's one thing, a government thing, maybe a staged event, maybe a solar event. They're just picking up on it, and so are others. We're also manipulated constantly to constantly be in fear. And so there could be signs that the universe sends to kind of lead in that direction, because I've seen this on and off, this catastrophobia affect us on a conscious level, on and off at least 15 years. I've seen my own experiences, my experiences with others. I've seen the path others have gone down. And so we could become bombarded with concerns about all of these things, and maybe some may miss the point that overall civilization is in a state of collapse, and living under such dire circumstances is not conducive to a stable mental health society, or society's mental health. And as we look at the news today, from one website to another, we are seeing the manifestation of the zombie apocalypse. And there's a reason for it. And it's not something that a little drug from the doctor is going to fix, although that's what they tell people. And that is a unfortunate distortion. If someone's feeling pain within themselves, maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe there's something that they need to change within themselves. And we see the way in which nature is affected by our devastation, by our destruction. And the things that elements of nature do to itself, is that really their natural way? Or is that the result of the state, the vibrational state the earth is in, and or other technologies that are designed to manipulate human psychology, i.e. mind control, satellite weapons? Without a doubt, some of that is going on. So spiritual warfare, and then there is straight psychotronic weapons. Maybe there's a reason that they don't talk about Zbigniew Brzezinski's book, on his 1972 book. I'm sure there's a PDF out there. Feel free to send it to me if it's out there. It's got to be out there on PDF for free. It's too popular of a book, but the book is out of print. Or maybe they brought it back into print. I need to get that book. I know I'm on a side tangent, but this is a key thing here. That book, written by Zbigniew Brzezinski back in the day, talks about basically using technology on the population. And he's not a good guy. He's a part of the elite, but is he the worst of the worst? It sure seems like he actually left a lot of clues clues that people can use to figure out what's going on. Is that a bad thing if somebody leaves clues, or is that a good thing if there's clues? What about the grand chessboard? Are we not seeing that now? Now, do you see people cite Zbigniew Brzezinski at the rate that they did when Obama was the president? There's a lot of things, including these murals, that were more popular under Obama, when there was kind of a somewhat of a narrative that maybe he would invoke martial law to stay in power, or maybe that he would be the Antichrist. And so there really was a lot of stuff that was brought out under Obama because it was convenient to assume that he would be the one to pull the trigger. Capiche? Oh, I know you're with me. I feel it. Here we are years later under Trump, and no longer do people go in certain narratives, let alone talk about a Nazi swastika. Obama's not the president anymore. But see, was it built under Obama? He's a part of the system. But why do people just make it around or Bush? Oh, Bush was an idiot. And they're very righteous in their assumptions that they know it all, today's people. Oh, don't they know it all? Bush was an idiot. Obama tried, but the Republicans try to block him. Trump's the devil. It's like their scope of political understanding is so low that it leads by our own hand to civilization's collapse. It leads to things like this. Mismanagement of the forest leads to wildfires. Look at the fires, as well as other things. That fire can also be representative. We have the tree of life. We have the seed of life. The roof is on fire. You might also like how Western civilization could collapse, things of that nature. Then we look at past civilizations to compare their longevity. They can be difficult because there is no strict definition of civilization, nor an overarching database of their births and deaths. In the graphic below, and we love graphics, we have the comparison of the lifespan of various civilizations, which are defined as a society with agriculture, multiple cities, military dominance in its geographical region, and a continuous political structure. So if we had a global grid down situation caused by the sun, we would see a reset in geopolitical relations. Continuing. Yeah, buddy. Given this definition, all empires are civilizations, but not all civilizations are empires. This data is drawn from two studies on the growth and decline of empires from 3000 to 600 BC and 600 BC to 600, and an informal crowdsourcing survey of ancient civilizations. The average lifespan of a civilization is 336 years. No way. Because you know what I'm thinking. We're all thinking it. Holy crap. What year is it? How many years away from 1776? I got to do some math here. So, well, just doing some rough, well, there's 2000, 240, around 240, 250 years. Okay, yeah. We still could fall farther before the whole thing. And, we can even see this stretch on, this threat of the solar flares. And we can even see like solar flares affecting our civilization for periods to come. Satellites could go down, geopolitics could be affected. It doesn't mean that they aren't then rebuilding somewhat, maintaining some of their infrastructure, i.e., it's not going to go all at once. Even within this relation to the sun, it's not necessarily going to be an overnight thing. We could see like the sun building up in activity and a continuing weakening of our Earth's magnetic field over time. Magnetic north moving, the poles shifting, and that opening us up to a shields down situation. Okay, so basically what they're saying here in the BBC about this 336-year timeline for civilization seems on par with us maybe coming up against something in the future, but not right away. It's like we've been given enough rope to hang ourselves. And I would say that from a spiritual perspective, in relation to talking about the Supreme Being. The Supreme Being. in relation to that. Going back and taking a look at these aren't all of the images that I was able to do a close-up on. I just tried to get this ready this morning to get this online, but the time most people are at church. This is Ansary's Church. Actually, if you want to look at some old Ansary's Church or Sunday recordings, where I'm trying to focus on a more spiritual direction, but yet acknowledging what's going on in the world, right? Google Ansary's Church. There's probably some episodes still up from, or videos from 2013. And there is a place to, this is almost creepy. It's almost like, like one guy standing on top of like a bat. But it does look like it is. And this one here, this looks like a dragon head in that last image, like something almost Incan. And again, we have a clearly defined fist, in my opinion, with something that looks like muscular arms, even a forearm. That looks like that could be some sort of clothing, maybe a very strong back, upper back. And we do see a little bit of an emphasis on muscular, and the reason that came up, again, somebody contacted me that wrote an article that was picked up by a large YouTube channel as well as a MUFON website. He's describing a 15-foot flying serpent. Now, how am I going from that to this and then jumping all the way back over to our article here? Well, it's like there are deeper subconscious reasons why we do what we do, and we bring different pieces of art together. I need to actually get more into drawing in this lifetime. I appreciate Lee sending some positive words with the donation, specifically regarding we have the power to change our circumstances. Like He-Man grabbing the sword from the stone, if you will, a combination of Arthurian imagery and other things. I have the power. We have the power. The Holy Grail, the quest for the Holy Grail is within. It is not without, but we look without in our world and we see people looking outside of themselves for the holiness, for the monopoly on violence, as my eyes now go back to the page. Right? People reaching for the golden ring. Collapse can be defined as rapid and enduring loss of population, identity, and socioeconomic complexity. So in my SolarMaxNews.com ebook, and if you're a new viewer, if you're like totally new to my work, and this is a topic that intrigues you, go to SolarMaxNews.com. That website will see more activity in the future. Right now, it's just there to host for free the PDF. And I compiled all that stuff when I was living off the grid in 2013, using power from other people's houses to get all those different studies that I felt connected, like they interlocked in a way that other people that look at the sun don't see the interlocking or necessarily the connection between violence and war cycles and the sun. Periods in which we see a solar minimum, according to Maurice Cotterell, that's why we also see a decline in population. And it's because of the connection between the cosmic rays and miscarriages, would be failed births. The failed births, i.e. miscarriages, during the steep solar minimums when we're bombarded by cosmic rays. This is real science. This is very relevant with regards to the collapse of civilization, but they're not mentioning this in the BBC. So I'm not attacking the BBC. I'm telling you that there are blind spots. The other day, you may have heard me express some emotion regarding a BBC debate with one person on the left, Antifa, and the other person on the right, Proud Boys. But what I could have gone deeper into is how the BBC isn't really representing other voices. They're still playing their part in the divide by making this like almost like celebritarian media, and people have these followings. And we have like a celebrity alternative media and protest movements where it's like a mixture of pop culture and, things of that nature. Info babes coming out of every sewer that you can imagine. No offense to actual genuinely beautiful people that don't prostitute their morals and integrity for money, for propaganda purposes. But we are living in a time of great corruption where, you'd hear people in the 80s talk about somebody selling their mother for some crack or their mother's TV for some crack, or they would. And now there's so much more that people are selling for trivial things. They're selling their own people down the river. So going back to this, virtually all past civilizations have faced this fate. Some have recovered or transformed, such as the Chinese and Egyptian. And Egyptian, you talk about Mayan, it's getting into Rome. There's something about also those images that I showed you about a potential past civilization. And we could be going way back, maybe not even millions, maybe just tens of thousands, maybe 30,000, maybe 50,000, maybe 100,000 years back. I think the guesstimate that I had was 30,000 years back. There may have been a civilization back then that was up here in this part of Colorado. That symbolism or the rock formation looks both from Mayan, Egyptian to Incan. It's the combination of the actual design of the serpent around the headdress, as well as the dragon, as well as the longer humanoid. And so, I mean, this is really right up the alley, one could say, of Graham Hancock. I don't specifically follow his work, but I know that Bill Gorman has attempted to get those photographs to Graham Hancock, and I don't think that he has necessarily looked at them. I just don't know. We're also in a day and age where we are so inundated with mockery of investigations. People could risk their popularity or their funding if they were to merely investigate certain things or propose a theory. Like maybe this appears this way, not from just some accidental form of coincidence, but because of XYZ, or to attempt to quantify and find out how did something come to be and form a certain way. And I don't know if it's our coast to coast AM culture, which is because Nori isn't exactly innocent, so it's a lot like the Burger King your way right away with conspiracies. I mean, I was seeing some stuff that was clearly disinformation, in my opinion. So Cobra says that the light beings need to get inside the inner Earth for activation. It's like, seriously, let's, for a second, can we try not to look like Batboy for just a minute? Cobra says one of the white hats, just no more Project Camelot, please. No more Project Camelot. Thank you very much. I mean, there's a place where you get within the world of alternative media and fringe to where it's like it becomes more about the sensationalism and the pop culture of the personalities and certain things with a little bit of truth, then taken into some weird direction that's better suited for the Sci-Fi Channel. But I think that it's highly naive for people to think that we are the only civilization, to think that just because they haven't discovered it. I mean, this is like the eternal arrogance of the people of this world. But in particular of Western civilization. You know, it was only 2 years ago or a year ago that they discovered that Mesa Verde in the Four Corners of Colorado specifically lines up with the sun during a particular point in the timeline. And it's only a new discovery. A new discovery. I have a book on the Pueblo Indians behind me that talks about these ancient Hopi sites that I think they, in fact, discovered. Things that were already there. Carvings that were already there. Their discovery of sites that were already set aside by a civilization that came before them. That's what I strongly believe. That the Hopis and other Native Americans came upon sites and carvings, maybe around ley lines that were used for specific purposes, and they may not have had the whole story as to what transpired there before. But they may have been able to tap into some deeply spiritual energies that others that came before them were able to tap into. But what has my interest, those that would follow the Native Americans, even some of us, that in our own private lives would study some of these sites or embrace some of the energy, moving around maybe some of the areas. I was in the San Luis Valley a few years ago, and that had its own unique magnetism. It's also a place in which I think a lot of people are going to flee to survive. People living there off the grid is more of something that the county is not allowing, but that's not going to stop people from fleeing to safe land. People could be fleeing Denver, for example. People could be fleeing Montana, for example. Putin has threatened a military site in Montana. What about Wyoming? There could be a great deal of people fleeing south. I'm constantly thinking about my California friends and those in Oregon that I care about, although I don't know how many friends I have in Oregon. Probably can count them on less than two hands. I certainly have seen a lot of outreach from people in California last night, and so I probably need to not stop myself from any inclination to talk about California issues, people fleeing California. Don't fall into the same mistakes others do by fleeing in a group with the same Californians and ending up at the same spot. If you're fleeing Californians, because that's what you're doing if you're fleeing California, don't necessarily go to where there's a bunch of Californians. I don't want to get too complex on the psychology, but if you're fleeing your own peoples, because a lot of people are fleeing some of the failed social policies and the power trippers that like to get into politics. Well, there's Californians that are running politics in Colorado. Basically, this is what I'm being told. And it's like, I care about those of you out there, and we need to think outside the box of surviving the collapse of civilization as we go into 2020s. There is land. There are people out there. There's no organization. There's no example of any of us, two or more coming together that are like above average intelligence that are putting out content. There are people that do come together, but it's usually based on how they come together and how they met for other reasons. They're usually business people or church people, people that are a little maybe different than people like me, people like you. There's not a lot of people that really seem to get it, and there's a lot of people that focus on the collapse of civilization that don't leave the big cities. Pausing this commentary and then going back to the article. We may be more technologically advanced now, but this gives little ground to believe that we are immune to the threats that undid our ancestors. Our newfound technological abilities bring new unprecedented challenges to the mix. And let's see what I skipped over. I would argue that they are societies of the past and present are just complex systems composed of people and technology. The theory of normal accidents suggests that complex technological systems regularly give way to failure. So collapse can be a normal phenomena for civilizations, regardless of their stage and size. So pausing. They're blaming Muslims and immigrants for the collapse of civilization, which has been ongoing. There's a documented collapse of civilizations, but they're going to scapegoat migrants, immigrants, and people of color, people that wouldn't fit into a white ethno-state dystopian genocidal nightmare. As their own society collapses at their own hand, they're going to blame others for the collapse of civilization. Now, this is really easy to see with crystal clear clarity. Continuing back to the article, if the fate of previous civilizations can be a roadmap to our future, what does it say? One method is to examine the trends that precedes historical collapses and see how they are unfolding today. But let's just keep reading. While there is no single accepted theory for why collapses happen, historians, anthropologists, and others have proposed various explanations, including climate change, the collapse of the Anasazi, and I've always been fascinated by how Ansari and Anasazi, especially when you flip the Z around, I don't know, I see a parallel. The Tiwanaku, and who knows if a soul may pick a last name, because he was really just trying to find something else. I have wacky theories. The Tiwanaku civilization, the Akkadians, the Mayan, the Roman Empire, and many others have all coincided with abrupt climate changes, usually droughts. Now, back to that person that sent me his testimony regarding potentially seeing a fallen angel, a big one. Could there be a connection with the end of civilization and the fallen ones returning, either to get a new group of sex slaves to help them with something, or to, I think that there is a connection with even alien sightings or UFO sightings that are actually potentially maybe not of the government, but something else. But more specifically, alien abductions where people's eggs are taken. So there could be an agenda as the Tower of Babel collapses to seed other places. There seems to be a very strong interest in It's the connection between the aliens and civilization, civilization being a power source for the aliens. And so if their resources, think about the Matrix and him trying to explain to Neo that, to them we are this, and he shows them an Energizer or a Duracell battery. If they were to lose their crop, think about a human and his crops. Think about our crops. How many Doritos are going to be made if a bunch of crops go? Well, that's why they do the GMO thing. But back to GMO food, GMO humans, genetically modified humans. They would like to terraform the planet because the end of civilization doesn't mean the end of the world. They would like to, in my belief, and I apologize to those of you that weren't expecting me to go this far outside the box, but we're really bringing it all full circle, where the corners meet in the middle. And we're getting the larger picture. But I think there is a big focus on a large population to the controllers for reasons that are obvious. And so if something's going to happen that they can't control, like the climate, like the sun, like environmental degradation, they do control things like inequality and oligarchy. And so as things go into a certain mode, they attempt to socially engineer our society to where we kill each other. Hence you have the disinformation was in social media today, which is designed to do that. It serves an alien program. The race war theology is an alien program. That is clearly something that's being imposed into our minds. You know who it really matters to? The racial makeup of this continent and the planet in 100 years. It matters to the archons. Oh, you knew we were going to go there. It matters to the archons. They are the ones that are operating here on the earth that have a vested interest in certain types of bloodlines that they have the codes to. That their codes have a higher likelihood on working, the manipulations. Certain changes in the blood through the mixing throws off their mechanisms. It throws off their accuracy. Now, this is more of an intuitive free flow. We'll try to put a cap on this and get back to something that people can understand. But some of you do understand this, that there is a vested interest in the type of humans, and this includes the transhumanistic agenda, which is connected to the other agendas. They aren't separate. The race war theology program, which is the alien program, is not running separate from the transhumanism program, which is why it's amazing that there are people in our own community, our own society, our own alternative media that will talk about microchips and transhumanism knowing that it's bigger. And when it's actually, you can, see from AMTV and others, they will externalize all of these technologies and things without taking accountability for being a part of the machine. So everything's a conspiracy based on controlling them, while people that are actually being removed off the planet in large numbers, they know that if they were to say something about that their status that brings them the money in this fallen world, that it would be put in jeopardy through simply saying one thing or questioning the institution that could, behind the scenes, be financing them. And so really we have societal degradation. We're probably going to come up upon other examples of the collapse of civilization regarding society, people selling each other, people selling women again. See, that's where I think that we're going back to. Once we have this collapse, we have the new running games, but it's not so much the running man, it's the running woman. And this is something that they've never made a movie about. I think Hunger Games maybe jumps on certain themes of have and have-nots, gladiator games. But the idea of us just going back to the Stone Age and people hunting each other and selling each other is probably the most immediate thing that would happen. And we're also talking about a grid down situation, especially if the government was to shut down the grid or an EMP. And there would be pockets of people trying to defend their women and or themselves. It's really going to come down to the most basic of basics. And it's almost as if people need significant time away from technology for their mind to clear to see how vulnerable we are to that exact type of scenario, how the whole man versus woman thing was by design to make the woman vulnerable, to resent the man on a larger level, right? And there is no romance at all in our modern day and age for some of us that have gone this path. And some of us have to live strict lifestyles to a certain degree. And when temptation comes from strangers, i.e., people that we don't know or haven't developed a deep-seated friendship with first, like even if we have physical sexual desires, we can't just then, every time something appears, to chase it like some sort of animal in the wilderness, because we have work to do. So, being that we've already brought up the archons are busy isolating people and destroying relationships, because relationships are healing, romance, and love. And I mean, even just having a pet has changed the energy of this environment. But you think about, like, what if people were to care about each other and modern day relationships were not so fucked up, not so empty? Maybe a reality where people aren't paying for sex, and that's not the way that things are done. And that there's actually an exchange of energy that goes around money that's far more fair. And I don't want to go too deep into like the world without money, but if we are thrust into some sort of a post solar flare event, then we're dealing with a world without digital money as we know it right now. And that changes everything overnight. So we also see like the end of civilization, but civilization itself is a oppressor. Civilization itself is a product of the archons and the way that civilization is being driven. So the end of civilization, going deeper than the BBC ever will, is not the end of the world. The end of civilization, Western civilization as it is right now, equals the liberation and freedom of others. And also look at how some people are using Western civilization as a sigil, saying that they created Western civilization and won't apologize, like sociopathic talking points. This is all carefully crafted and designed by mad scientists that are beyond human consciousness. Inequality, oligarchy. I talked about Alexander Chavinsky and the Russian oligarchy in 1918 punishing a man that discovered the links between solar flares and wars. He's the only man early on that I know of to discover that type of, and today, right, I talk about this and there's studies, but people have a deeper interest in weather than something that now can be tracked in real time. I mean, it's only in recent years that you can even look at Twitter and type in solar flares headaches, and it was in 2013, 2014 that I was starting to see a rise in people getting it and using this new technology to log at a certain day, at a certain time, they felt a certain way, and they're going, is it the solar flares? And very rarely would someone say, hey, it's the solar flares, here's my book. It's just like, is it the solar flare? People are still like in the entry level questioning of something that we could have had figured out and probably did thousands of years ago. We are not an intelligent society or recipient of a good educational school system. And we are taught ways to judge our fellow peers and to look away from the good knowledge that is being created today because of all the distracting things that are on social media. People are using the internet now to bully each other, to attack each other, to stalk each other, instead of help each other organize a camping barbecue together. These are signs that are significant in the mind of Alex Ansary. These are incredible signs that we can use with some sort of an instrument. That instrument would be our brain, would be our mind, our consciousness. It's not necessarily some sort of a compass or ruler that we need. It's our mind. Okay, the field of these various models show how such equality and demographics correlate with political violence. Statistical analysis of previous societies suggest that it happens in cycles. And so we are in the strongest cycle of political violence. And I've been talking about that tirelessly. Complexity. Collapse expert and historian Joseph Tainter has proposed that society's eventual collapse under the weight of their own accumulated complexity and bureaucracy. And you know the significance of me showing you Anderson Cooper demonizing people, questioning what led to these wars? That is a significant mind control application on the population that's going to watch Drum Corsi go, I did, and they stop short of saying I denounce, but he knows full well the role that he's playing. While the world's a stage, Jerome Corsi has his part, Alex Jones has his part, Roger Stone has his part, Anderson Cooper has his part, Rachel Maddow has her part, others have their part. Another measure of increasing complexity is called energy return on investment. I, if there is a shift in consciousness, I'm looking to see some energy return on investment on some levels. But again, wow, I want to thank Jared and Lee and others, David Smith, for your assistance in recent days so I can get my car back on the road. But when those of us that have really put our neck on the line and put out the truth, not with the intention of dividing, but helping, we're looking to see some energy return on investment with regards to a better time on this planet while we are alive. But I have to realize that people like Alexander Chavinsky and others, other philosophers, they didn't have it easy while they were alive because their ideas, although they were valuable to later civilizations, their current civilization didn't seem to understand. And the role that I'm playing here on Earth, this is really coming at me really quickly in this free flow, I'm playing a role in documenting what happened here before our civilization collapsed. I'm documenting on a planet of 7 billion people that I'm saying certain things that other people are not. And those things that I've said have alienated me, and I'm hoping that within my lifetime to see some more positive return on investment. I don't know if there's hope for people to figure things out. I'm seeing very negative signs for the people of Colorado with regards to how extremely a man like me has been isolated in this region. How few people have even contacted me from the big city of Denver, and yet I'm in the state of Colorado. I've been around for a number of years, and it's like those people that I would have contacted before, like We Are Change chapters and whatnot, so much of that is so influenced by the Alex Jones sphere and elements of the alt-right, and there isn't really that type of nor really ever a conducive movement, more like following other people on the internet and using certain buzzwords to associate with the groupthink. We haven't really seen a movement, and even the term the movement is now used by the far right in Italy. They call themselves the movement. So what movement, truth movement, do we have? It's the movement of thoughts within your own consciousness as an individual that has the ability to see this. And there is the power of when two or more gather. But I would caution those against two or more gathering just to quote-unquote expose someone, because that can bring very bad luck to one person. I have lived that. There's more than exposing people. There's helping people. There's pointing the way to the truth to the people that have been affected. I mean, it's one thing to point the finger at someone, and it's another to say, well, here's some truth, though, you may want to consider. Well, you're stepping away from that person's media source or outlet. Here's something that you may want to consider. Some people don't have their own truth now. It's just war. And war is their only truth. It is the only thing that's real. And then thus, you see people that are literally consciously thrust back thousands of years, acting as if they're souls that are first-time humans on Earth. And that's the thing that really gets some of us. We're so taught to be addicted to this world without realizing that maybe some of us were sent here for sentencing. And we were given a chance to work something off based on our actions. The Aztec Empire, for example, was brought to an end by Spanish invaders. Most early agrarian states were fleeting due to deadly epidemics. The concentration of humans and cattle in walled settlements with poor hygiene made disease outbreaks unavoidable and catastrophic. And so, what a lot of people think now, the collapse of civilization, it's immigrants with diseases, but they're not able to see their own corruption, which was a part of the collapse of civilization, which started way back. This is not something new. And so they helped arm the Chinese and others to get to where they are today. And so the real invaders from over the wall, it's going to be a different scenario. Right now, they're using propaganda through corruption and media control to take people's inner feeling and idea that, ooh, civilization's about to collapse. Oh my God, it must be them. And that's what we have right now. We have the mind control. We have people saying that Western society, civilization is collapsing, and those people are to blame, and they have no interest whatsoever in deep-seated, deep-thoughted investigations into foreign military technology being outsourced. That's not as sensational for them. That's not like, people they can easily bully and step on. And so in the collapse of civilization, people will look for other people to step on without realizing they're helping bring down civilization. They aren't something to brag about. They aren't something impressive. They are actually living out that political violence. They are under archonic mind control. You won't read about the archons in the BBC. Randomness, bad luck. Collapse is random and independent of age. Evolutionary biologists and data scientists and colleagues have observed a similar pattern in the evolutionary record of species. A common explanation of this apparent randomness is the Red Queen effect. If species are constantly fighting for survival in a changing environment with numerous competitors, extinction is a consistent possibility. Pausing now again, all this stuff about going off to Mars. Is this true? Is this a hoax? If it is true, what technology do they have? What are their plans for seeding civilization? What do they plan to do? Danger signs. History suggests that when these indicators rise, the likelihood of collapse is greater. Climate change, environmental impact. Temperature is a clear metric for climate change. What a lot of people don't understand that there seems to be maybe there's a political agenda just saying that the sun is dying. But anyway, the sun is not dying, and the sun does impact temperatures on the earth. So much of what the left focuses on is the fossil fuel factor. I don't see anyone offering to use their mighty wealth to give those of us that are poor alternative transportation. They like to waste a lot of money. They like to kill a lot of people overseas. They like to spend a lot of money on a war. They like to give the bill to the taxpayers. What are they doing then under their official global warming? The planet is heating up theory caused by emissions specifically to the heating. Look, I've seen people snap at me for saying the sun's involved. And it's like, where are their elites helping the people move to something alternative? Hybrid cars are for the people that can afford them. I mean, that's obvious. Hybrid cars are bought and used by the people that can't afford them, or the companies that are sending their employees out in hybrid cars. I'm seeing them all over here in Colorado, all these little mini hybrid cars that all these welfare state social workers are driving in. And it's like, there's like the cycle of waste and mismanagement and gross incompetency with technology, gross greed. Oh, we can't just da-da-da. And so they're all about welfare and whatnot, and them basically having these wars for free while charging the tax. They have their own welfare system by charging the people for wars that they create and people that they kill. So people are actually going to have an anti-welfare state argument. They have to address military spending. They have to address overseas wars. And thus, they may even have to address, right, the event that got us in these wars, heaven forbid. But unfortunately, our society is now so corrupt and so decadent morally that it has no interest or will to do such. With very few of you supporting me, but those of you that do, and those of you that do watch this channel, it means a lot. And it's not going to get easier. this type of algorithm that wants to bury people like me from helping people understand what happened to this world. There's going to be a lot of work that I'm going to need to do to put a lot of my ideas into writing so future civilizations will understand what really happened here, because they're only going to get this perspective. Future generations are going to be reading history books with official stories. The future, like the present, like the past, will have an underground cache of knowledge and information, with the ways in which the underground technologies of the future will be analyzing the underground bits of information that are created from today's day and age and preserved. What is it going to take to preserve certain levels of knowledge and information after what's coming? Whether it be an EMP or a solar flare. Sure, some flash drives and hard drives may, if they're buried deep in the ground and shielded, survive what's to come, but what's to come may literally wipe out all forms, all expressions of electric chips. If it's something really big, I mean, this is fairly new for our modern civilization to have gotten to the point where it's at right now. And so anything major, I mean, even like the things that happened in the past, civilization was not so dependent on technology for their records. They read books, they kept books, they wrote books. What do? We do Kindle. We do flat screens. And it's like we can do some great things with this technology if it's moving consciousness forward instantaneously. We also have to think about preserving. The rich are getting richer, which in past civilizations has created additional stress on societies. It's like a book I'm reading. Studies suggested the EROI, that would be the energy return, for fossil fuels has been steadily decreasing over time as the easiest to reach and richest reserves are depleted. Unfortunately, most renewable replacements, such as solar, have a lower EROI, largely due to their energy density and the rare earth minerals and manufacturing required to produce them. And one other thing about the people with superiority complexes that are into race war theology, one thing to mention about that, some of that thinking is based on their ability to take over other civilizations. Well, what if they're doing that with weapons and resources that they stole? Now think about Afghanistan, think about lithium. Think about Afghani lithium. No, not just Afghani, bud. Think about the stolen Afghani lithium in our computers. Now pause that thought, snapshot, freeze frame. Stolen lithium, occupied land, stolen lithium for Western technology for smartphones, as Afghans die by the millions, but they don't count the bodies, so you don't see protests. It's as if it's not even happening at all. And nothing happened, actually. Nothing happened at all since 1979, where Russia and the U.S. took turns banging away. I would be born in 1980. I would be born in the era of time right as the fall of Afghanistan would begin. I would be affected on a genetic level, and the humans that would share this planet with me would not understand the psychology of empathy for a country bombed back to the Stone Age. I would be alone in that. I would feel alone in that. But I would understand that that callousness leads to one place and one place only for future generations. There is no going back. There is no tomorrow. There is only the now. So if we're going to be, let's play that Denver little, like after we get through all this stuff. Is that clip really all that funny? Promoting the new Denver airport with the talking gargoyles. We'll end the show with another viewing of that. Measures of resilience. The somewhat reassuring news is that collapse metrics are not the entire picture. Societal resilience may be able to delay or prevent collapse, or individuals like us may find a way to survive, or spirit may assist us. I'm waiting for spirit to assist me in pointing the way that maybe I should take a vacation to experience some other ley line energies, maybe some other humans. And spirit may be directing you. Like we may be directed to where we need to be at the moment for those years. Like I've been safe for this period in time for a number of years, But what about tomorrow? And the years after that? Or will there be a wave of consciousness that will wash across the earth like something out of the water in Lord of the Rings? As we see the elemental forces of nature team up with the forces of man to combat the forces of Mortor. While we are becoming more economically powerful and resilient, our technological capacities has also present some unprecedented threats that no civilization has had to contend with. For example, the climate changes we face are of a different nature to what undid the Maya or Anasazi. They are global, human-driven, quicker, and more severe. And I will also say that there is a point in acknowledging this if we're going to acknowledge technology and what technology has done to our relationships. The industry that we have today that the ancients did not have clearly is playing a role in destabilizing the planet on some level. As I said earlier, though, they're not really trying to stop that. As I've said in other recordings, they're not really trying to help the world prepare for a grid down situation. They're not reinforcing the grid. So in the last thing that we will play today, this is from hashtag Denver Files. This report on the talking gargoyles, no longer an area of concern. Now it's time to lighten the humor. It's time to get excited about the end times. And I'm Alex Yancey signing off, reminding you that the path to the ultimate truth and place of power still lies within.
That's a little too close for comfort, lady.
Oh, damn.
What, you never seen a talking gargoyle before? Welcome to Illuminati headquarters. I mean, Denver International Airport.
This is awesome.
Hello? Do I know you?
Are you hungry?
Oh, I'm starving. You got anything for me? Those flowers look delicious.
Oh, my God.
Oh, it's because of the conspiracy.
Oh, it's because of the conspiracy. Look at me. I'm a little know-it-all. Will you get back over here? I got a question about this conspiracy. Did you have to buy an extra seat for your hat, sir? Sir, are you stealing a desk? Sir, you have resting, confused face. Do you have a favorite animal or pet?
A caterpillar?
A caterpillar? Wouldn't you rather have a gargoyle?
No!
Yes! You know, you can actually put the phone down and have a conversation with me. But no, I'm a millennial. I've got to post it. I've got to snap face it and Twitter book it. Excuse me, miss, I've got a stain that needs some polishing. Can I borrow your cleaning cart?
Oh, no.
I need your help. Guess what my favorite food is?
What?
No, I want you to guess.
Human?
Cumin. Yes, I love cumin.
I said human.
Oh, I thought you said cumin. I'm a real big spice guy. Furry hat guy. I can't believe you are wearing with my friends.
Hey, this isn't your friend.
It used to be until you put it on your head, man.
How old are you?
Well, 243 years old now. I look good for my age, don't I?
Yeah, you work out?
All the time. You should see my squats.
You're such a sweet talker.
Will you take me back home with you?
Let's go. I have some space in my backpack.
Actually, I think you have too much baggage for me.